How are you guys doing? It's such a blessing to be here. And we truly, we are in quite an adventure. God has asked us to do things that we didn't plan for, as He always does. But it's one of those things that helps us to grow. We've been in Costa Rica for a long time. We have been living in a place that is just a little piece of paradise, very comfortable, very beautiful, abundant in every blessing, and very secure. And then He asked us to get out and to follow Him. And He even insisted that we should get out of Costa Rica to follow Him wherever He leads us by January, or in January. So, in trusting Him, what we did is, okay, we're going to do that, but we stretched it all the way to the end as much as we could. So we booked tickets for January the 31st, at the very last day. And because we were still uncertain, we were certain of that He was calling us. We just had a lot of uncertainty of what He was calling us to. Literally, we knew that He knew all that was going to happen, and that this whole mess was going to start shortly 2 weeks after we arrived, and every plan changed. But in all of that, He's been asking the same question. Do you trust me? And that's been a tough question to answer more and more. And I believe it's the same question that He's asking all of us. Do we trust Him? In regards to COVID, in regards to our businesses, in regards to our health, our family, our everything. Do we trust Him? That's the same question time and time again. So, what could we do? I'm going to ask you several questions today. There's a couple of questions that are going to be repeated. So please pay attention to them, because they are there for a reason. But then, we have this question. If you can, Jesus asked. Now, who did He ask this to? First, let's go through some scriptures about what He wants us to do. So, Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will guard him and keep him in perfect and constant peace, whose mind, both in inclination and in his characters, is stayed on you, because he commits himself to you, leans on you, and hopes confidently in you." Notice the emphasis. He will keep in perfect peace. But then, this is not an open letter to anybody. It is available to everybody who wants to, but this is going to apply only to those who confidently hope in Him and who lean on Him. All right. This says, in Proverbs 1:33 says, "But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster." Does this speak to you? It certainly speaks to me. All this uncertainty is not helping. It really doesn't help. But here He is encouraging us. But we must listen first. We must trust Him. We must listen. And listening involves obeying. It's not just, oh, well, I heard something, and then go about and do whatever you want. Listening involves obeying. So, if we do these things, He's able to do these other things. Or He promises to do these other things, which is very encouraging. Let's take this other one, famous one. John 3:16. "For God so greatly loved and dearly prized the world, that He even gave up His only begotten, unique Son, so that whoever believes in Him, trusts in, clings to, relies on Him, shall not perish or come to destruction or be lost, but have eternal life. Now, sounds all very good, but the question behind all of this is, do we trust God? Do we trust Him? He's all along asking us, do you trust me? And this is really, really important. Do we trust Him? Why is it so important? Do we give Him enough credit? Do we give Him enough credit to actually follow Him? Do we believe in the words that He says? Because those are really encouraging words. But anybody could say them. Why are they so important? What do they have so much power? Because the one who makes those promises is not just anybody. The question is going to remain, do we trust Him? Because that's what's going to matter the most. So let's take a small tour through some of the things that Jesus was doing when He was here in the earth. So we have this case where there is this leper that came to Him, imploring Him and kneeling. And He said, if you will, you can make me clean. Pay attention to what He's saying. He says, if you will, you can make me clean. So, moved by pity, with pity, He stretched out His hand and touched him and said to him, I will be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him and he was made clean. This is quite amazing. But do notice what He said. Okay, let's take this other case. In Matthew 9, we have this scene where there are two blind men. And it says, as Jesus was passing on from there, two blind men followed Him, crying out loud, have mercy on us, Son of David. When He entered the house, the blind men came to Him. And Jesus said to them, so Jesus didn't stop. But that didn't stop them. He went into a house and they followed Him into the house. Why would they risk doing so? And they're blind men, nonetheless. So it's not easy for them. It's not easy to follow someone when you are blind. And especially if that person goes into a house and you are not seeing. It's not easy. But they follow Him. So look at what Jesus says. When He entered the house, the blind men came to Him. And Jesus said to them, do you believe that I am able to do this? Why didn't Jesus just turn when He heard them calling Him? He knew it wasn't easy for them. But He was trying to see if they were resolved and if they trust Him. So He says, do you believe that I am able to do this? And they say to Him, yes, Lord. Yes, they do. They did believe. Then He touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, be it done to you. And their eyes were open. Let's contrast this with this other scenario. Because those are very nice. Those examples are really, really nice. They are examples of people who were healed and got what they wanted, what they were looking for, because they believe. But is that always the case with us? Mark 9 says, and they brought the boy to Him, and when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy. And he fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked his father, how long has this been happening to him? And he said, from childhood. Now, by this time, the disciples had been trying to get the demon out of this boy, unsuccessfully. So, the father is a little bit shaky in his faith. And he says, And he has often cast him into fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And Jesus said to him, if you can, if you can. All things are possible for one who believes. Now, how many times have we heard these verses recited? When we have need, when we are not healthy, when we have a financial situation, somebody in our family has died or is ill. There's a worldwide pandemic. How many times can we hear words like this? Everything is possible to one who believes. Now that sounds very nice. But how many times do we find ourselves doubting? Are we safe? Are those words that he said really true? Do they hold up to the test when they matter most? So while some will say, if you want to, but we know you can, we're just asking you, if you want to. Others will say, if you can, let's see if it actually happens. It's like the difference that happened with the Israelites when they were about to cross the Red Sea. Did they trust that God will save them? Yeah, one of them did. That's about it. Everybody else was in panic, sheer panic. Why? Because they were looking with their eyes. And of course they were in panic. They were being chased. But not just any army. And they were trapped by not a little puddle. So, did they have any hope? Not much. Now, when one of them believed, God said, why are you looking at me? Stretch your hand. And he did the rest. And after they had crossed the Red Sea, and they were safe at the other side, then the Bible tells us that the very first song of praise is recorded in the Bible. They gave praise to God. And that's very nice. He deserved it. But they gave praise to God after they saw what he did. We as Christians are called to believe before he does. We shouldn't be saying, well, if you can deliver us, then we'll trust you. He is constantly asking us, do you believe? And if we do, then we can say, yes, we do, but if you want to, then do what you can do, that which we know that you can do. So the difference between believing in God and believing God is often very small. It resides in whether we trust him or not. The difference between believing in God and believing God himself, what he says, what he declares, what he promises, is whether we trust him. And this is very important because then again, all of those things that we read are beautiful. They are very encouraging, but they are worth nothing if we don't believe him, if we don't trust that whoever said those words is actually able to back them up. Is it true? It matters absolutely nothing than somebody who doesn't have a penny to their name will say, well, I'll give you a castle. I'm like, all right, thank you. But it's different when you know that the person can deliver. We've been facing this a lot lately. In this journey that he's taken us, we've been trying to do all the responsible things that parents would like to do, and we've been trying to prepare and make accommodations for everything that is, that we foresee. But every now and then, God has been, at every single point, he's been asking us, do you trust me? And so, all along, we have been faced with the reality and that sometimes we don't. We are stressed, we get out of bed, and we are somehow just all into knots. And we don't even realize why at first. But then we go to the core of what's happening. We are in a corner here and there and there and there. We are doubting whether he's actually in control. We came to the point where this last week, some things happened where we had already everything planned out for the first 15 days of our move to England, and everything was already nice and done. And just as I was sharing the good news, a message comes in, and everything goes up in smoke. So I start to struggle. God, but this was already there. And you opened the door, but now it's like you slam it shut. And then all I will hear from him is, do you still trust me? And of course, the right answer is yes. That's the right answer. But it doesn't come quite as easy. Because we are parents. We have little girls. And we don't want to get there and not know where we are going to stay. We want to be responsible. We want to do everything that is on our hands, that we're able to. We don't want to be, neglectful. But he asked, do you still trust me? And then when my wife and I were talking that night, we say, you know what's weird? He's been calling us. And all along, he's been testing us. The weird thing is that if there was a very wealthy and powerful person saying in England, come, I invite you here. I'll take care of everything. Don't worry. Will we be asking him where are we going to stay? What are we going to do? What's the itinerary? How are we going to do this or that or the other? Will we be safe? No. We wouldn't care a bit. We will be sleeping peacefully every single night because we know that somebody that we are able to trust in sets that we are in good hands, that we are all taken care of. And we'll be ecstatic, delighted, looking forward to what's going to happen. And we wouldn't be caring a little bit about all of the details. Because somebody who is able to deliver and that we can trust said so. But when God tells us that he is taking us, he's calling us, and that he's taking care of everything, somehow that seems a little, I don't know what's the right way to say it, but it shakes us a little bit. And at the core of the matter is this question: do we believe him? Do we trust him? So let's see what happened with this father. If you can, all things are possible to one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe. I believe. Help my unbelief. And I find myself often saying precisely these same words. Yes, I believe you. I believe you enough to come here. But here is a little easier because I have my parents, I know people, I know my way around, I live in this place before. So there's uncertainty, but not quite as much. Out there, if we don't trust him, we're going to sink. The shore is far, far behind us. And there's no way we could survive swimming. we have to walk on the water, and our feet may fail. The only way to survive is if we place our eyes on Him. So I often find myself saying, yes, I believe, but please help my unbelief. Because every so often, He has an act to shine a light in one of those corners where I thought I trusted Him, just to find I didn't quite do so. Not all the way. So, He's able to deliver the boy. But the question still, at the core of everything is, do we trust God? Do we give Him enough credit? Do we believe His words? Let's go to Hebrews. In Hebrews 4:16 it says, let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Let us then with confidence. The problem about us and our relationship with God is often this one. Is He able to do anything? Well, that depends. Do you trust Him? All right, well, that depends. What do you mean that depends? Well, I may trust Him if I believe that He is good. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we doubt it. How about this COVID thing? Do we believe that somehow He fell asleep while He was driving? And suddenly He woke up and, oh my goodness, all this mess. Look at that. It got out of hand. If we believe that He's in control of everything, then we believe that this thing is happening according to His will. He didn't necessarily make it happen, yeah, but He did allow it. And you can believe that He does have a purpose for it. Do we believe that He's in control or not? So are we able to draw near to Him with confidence? Well, yes, if we trust Him. And we are able to trust only in people that we believe are good. They're good. Whatever they say, they're good for it. It's trustworthy. It has weight. You can bet on it. You can trust in whatever they say. But why is this so important? Why is it so important that we believe in Him and that we believe Him? Well, no less because if you confess, as it says in Romans 10:9, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. This is utterly important because then again, how do we know that we're saved? It's not like, He didn't quite make it easy. Of all things, He chose that we should believe that God raised Him from the dead. How many of you have seen a dead person arise from the dead? It doesn't happen every day, does it? So, do we have reasons to be a little skeptic? Very much. Why then He asks us that if we believe in our heart that in our hearts that God raised Him from the dead, then we will be saved. He could have said, well, if you believe in His words, many people believe in His words. Like Thomas Jefferson, for example, he had a special Bible where he crossed out pretty much all of the places where he said that Jesus was the Son of God, but he left all of the nice things that he said, his nice teachings, because he did believe that he was a good master. So you can say, well, if you believe in his teachings, then you will be saved. But he didn't. Yeah, it's important we believe in what he says. But it says here that if we believe in our hearts that God raised him from the dead, aka something that doesn't quite happen normally, then you will be saved. Why? We must do like the Israelites. In order to be saved, we first need to believe. In order to cross this chasm that separates us from heaven, from our true home, we must first believe. Then we will find the way home. But we must first believe. So let's take a small tool. Job, for example. In Job 42, there is this point where Job had gone through all of these many roller coaster of emotions and so many things that had happened to him, and that the Bible even tells us at the very beginning he didn't deserve. But somehow God ruled that this was good. And now he has lost everything, his sons and daughters nonetheless. And still, after confronting him, he's able to say, then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things. You can do all things. And that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore, I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Hear, and I will speak. I will question you, and you make it known to me. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Even in his times of need, he was able to say, I don't understand anything that has happened to me or why, but I trust that you're good. And I trust that there was a reason for all of this. That was amazing. Let's take Abraham. He came and asked him for one of those crazy requests he every so often asked. Now the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house, meaning from your inheritance, from the place where you find your security. You remember that back in those days there were not many treaties, and governments were not quite the same. So your safety depending on numbers. You needed to cuddle up with other people and bundle up so that others will be deterred from messing with you. Because, heck, we're a lot. You don't want to. And his inheritance is right there. His security is right there. Everything that he knows is there. And he says, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation. And I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Now that's a lofty promise. But does it matter? It matters if the one who makes it is able to fulfill it. But you are not going to be able to grab it unless you believe in the one who made it. It's that simple. Not easy, but simple. So let's look at what Hebrews have to say about Abraham. And he said, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. So, let me paint the picture a little bit. He already had an inheritance. So God says, you know what? That inheritance that you're looking at, leave that behind and trust me. I will give you a better one, which you cannot see. How does that work with you? And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. Now that's amazing. But then again, that's impossible unless you believe. He did not see the sea open up before him, before he stepped out. He first trusted God. Then he stepped out. And then everything else started to happen. And that's what he's calling us to do. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she was considered, let me see. The slide went a little bit back. So by faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born descendants as many as the stars of heaven, and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore. Sorry, the slides are not moving, so I'm going to read from here. Let's take Noah, for example. He says, by faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear constructed an ark for the saving of his household. By this he condemned the world, and because an heir of the righteousness, and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. So, these are people that are seeing things happen before they happen. These are people that trust in God. There was no way for Noah to see what was going to happen. But he trusted that whoever said that was going to happen knew what was going to happen. And we have Enoch. He says, by faith Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death. And he was not found because God had taken him. Now before he was taken, he was commended as having pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever will draw near to God must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who seek him. Then again, this is a matter of trust. In everything that God asks of us, this is a matter of trust. And we must figure out, where do we stand? This is really, really important, because we will not be able to change the world unless we believe in him. It's that simple. We will not be able to change the world unless we believe in him. Now, this is quite a challenge because we are humans. And we struggle. But somehow the fruit that he puts in our hearts, he says that is going to make a difference. He says that at some point, he's going to make sure that it changes the world. I'll leave you with a little passage from Psalms. Psalms 1 says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers." This is of utter importance because he's asking us to trust him, and that what he places in our hearts will be not just enough for us, but enough to change the world. In this world, we are going to be challenged many a times with bitterness and anger, evil doing. Much of the time, we are going to be harmed, ill-treated. And yet he's calling us to not do what the world does, but to go the opposite direction. Just as other people will plant their seeds in our fields, in our hearts, those seeds could grow into something bad that will yield really horrible fruits of their own. That those fruits will themselves be planted in other people's hearts. And then in a very real sense, this becomes a pandemic, like the one we're experiencing. We let our words out, we let our anger out, and we exteriorize all of that frustration. And we, by doing so, we plant a bad seed in other people's hearts, and we perpetuate the cycle. But then he calls us to do something quite remarkably different than that. Ephesians 4:31 says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you." We are supposed to take away all of this, along with all malice, and be kind to one another instead, tender-hearted, to have a good heart, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. So he was the first one to plant the seed in us. He is the one who forgives us first. And we must believe that. If we don't believe it, we cannot be saved. But once we believe it, our hearts could be changed. And by changing our hearts, we believe we are also able to change the hearts of others. Not only that, now what is going to grow in our hearts is not going to be an evil plant with evil fruit. It's going to be really good fruit that we're going to plant in others, in their hearts. And that's going to help us to change the world. So then again, do we trust God? Are we going to ask if you can? Or are we going to say, Lord, if you want to? Because if we are able to, then all of these promises are going to apply for us. We're going to be able to draw near to his throne. of grace confidently and receive it. We are going to know with certainty that we are loved and redeemed. We are going to trust that He's going to keep us, no matter what the circumstances, in perfect peace. And we are not going to be dreading any disaster or any uncertainty. Do we believe in Him? Or do we believe Him? That's still going to remain the question. Because, as Jesus said, all things are possible for one who believes.